Tensions escalated quickly in the latest White House press briefing, turning what was supposed to be a routine exchange into a moment that would be analyzed for days to come.
And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people, and that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room.
CNN's Kaitlan Collins entered the room prepared, believing she had a calculated question that could put Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt on the defensive. The expectation that a misstep, a hesitation, or an unclear response would create a viral moment. But things didn't go as planned.
First of all, it would take someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently frequently likened President Trump to Adolf Hitler.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back.
Rather than struggling for an answer, Karoline turned the exchange on its head. Instead of being caught off guard, she responded with a direct, fact-based rebuttal, dismantling Kaitlan's argument in real time. The result? A moment of complete silence in the press room. Kaitlan paused, seemingly searching for a way to recover, but the damage had already been done.
The president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress.
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
The momentum had completely shifted, and for a moment, it was unclear how the exchange would proceed. And the most significant part, it all happened live. There was no post-production editing, no selective framing, just an unfiltered exchange witnessed by everyone watching. The internet took notice immediately. The clip circulated rapidly, with users dissecting every second of the...
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
Within hours, social media was flooded with reactions, questioning Kaitlan's approach, her credibility, and her preparedness. It became a larger conversation about media, press accountability, and political narratives. And just like that, what started as a single question became a national debate.
And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to.
Let's break down exactly what happened in this explosive exchange. CNN's Kaitlan Collins, known for her pointed questioning and aggressive interviewing style, came into the press briefing confident, expecting to gain the upper hand. She thought she had the perfect setup, a question designed to challenge Karoline Leavitt, possibly even catch her off guard. But that's not how it played out. Karoline didn't hesitate. She didn't stumble or scramble for a response. Instead, she delivered a direct, composed answer, countering Kaitlan's argument with a series of clear, undeniable facts. Kaitlan attempted to push back, but it was clear she wasn't prepared for that level of response. The exchange quickly shifted in Karoline's favor, leaving Kaitlan searching for words as the room fell into silence. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a moment that everyone in the room could feel. The weight of the exchange was palpable, as the usually commanding journalist found herself on the defensive. What made it even more notable? The internet took notice immediately.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws, and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
Within minutes, clips of the exchange began circulating, sparking widespread discussions about media accountability, press tactics, and political narratives. This wasn't just a single moment in a press briefing, it became a larger conversation. Within minutes, the internet erupted. Trending hashtags, viral clips, and an online firestorm took over social media. The moment spread rapidly, with people across platforms dissecting every second of the exchange. Political commentators, journalists, and everyday users weighed in, debating what had just unfolded. Meanwhile, CNN was in damage control mode. The network scrambled to regain control of the narrative, but it was too late. The clip had already been shared thousands of times, and people were demanding answers. Social media became flooded with reaction videos, analysis threads, and debates over Kaitlan Collins' credibility as a journalist. CNN's response? Panic. They began quietly removing clips from their platforms. Fact-checkers were mobilized, attempting to reshape the conversation, but the moment was too big to bury. No matter how hard they tried, the political conversation had already shifted. Even some left-leaning figures acknowledged that Kaitlan had walked into a rhetorical trap. At the same time, discussions about broader political issues intensified. Debates resurfaced about how President Trump had been portrayed in media, with critics arguing that for years he had been labeled a threat to democracy, compared to historical figures of mass destruction, and framed as a singular danger to the country. Additionally, concerns were raised about how Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden had allegedly used the judicial system against Trump, with claims that the legal actions against him were politically motivated attempts to prevent him from running again. Discussions also turned to the real-world consequences of such rhetoric, including 2 major attempts on Trump's life, incidents that, by the grace of security measures, he had survived. The conversation expanded even further, shifting to foreign policy and political conflicts. Some pointed to figures like Liz Cheney and former Vice President Dick Cheney, highlighting their roles in historical U.S. military interventions. The debate wasn't just about a press briefing anymore. It was about the media's role in shaping political narratives, the boundaries of political attacks, and the lasting effects of rhetoric on public perception. And just like that, a brief exchange at the White House podium had spiraled into one of the most heated political debates in recent memory. The irony was impossible to ignore. CNN had tried to paint Karoline Leavitt as unprepared, but in the end, they only exposed their own missteps. What was supposed to be a tough line of questioning had turned into a disaster for Kaitlan Collins. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for CNN, they did. In a last-ditch effort to regain control of the conversation, Kaitlan switched topics, bringing up the rising cost of eggs. She attempted to shift the blame to the White House, tying inflation and grocery prices to administration policies. But Karoline didn't hesitate. Rather than deflecting, she fired back with a response so sharp that it left Kaitlan visibly stunned. Karoline laid out a direct, fact-based explanation detailing how Biden's economic policies, including the mass culling of chickens due to disease outbreaks, had contributed to the egg shortage. The answer wasn't just a counter-argument, it was a shutdown. The response was so clear, so well-structured, that it left no room for spin. And even more notable, CNN's own audience wasn't buying the narrative anymore. Social media erupted again, with clips of Karoline's response spreading rapidly, fueling more debate about economic policy, supply chain issues, and inflation. Then came the statement that sealed the exchange. There's a lot of reporting out there trying to put the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or possibly upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% across the country. And it wasn't just eggs. We've seen prices for bacon, groceries, gasoline, everything rise under these inflationary policies. It was a moment that hit hard, not just because of the directness, but because it reflected frustration felt across the country. At that point, even some of CNN's loyal viewers were questioning the narrative. The conversation had shifted again, from a single press briefing to a national debate about economic policy, media bias, and political accountability. The egg shortage debate continued, and the facts became even harder to ignore. Karoline laid it out clearly, citing direct policies from the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture, which had directed the mass culling of over 100 million chickens. The result? A major reduction in poultry supply, leading to higher prices and an egg shortage that affected consumers nationwide. The exchange hit home for many viewers who saw it as a rare moment of political accountability on live television. One Twitter user summed it up best. Imagine getting embarrassed this badly in front of the entire country. Karoline just ended Kaitlan's career in under 3 minutes. Even CNN's own producers were likely frustrated, as their attempt to shift the narrative completely backfired. Kaitlan had tried everything, but nothing worked. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for her, they did. Because this wasn't just about one tough exchange, it was about the broader issue of media credibility. For years, mainstream media outlets had been accused of pushing selective narratives, dismissing opposing views, and attacking conservative figures, expecting them to back down. But this time, Karoline didn't back down. She held her ground, and in doing so, highlighted what many saw as a long-standing problem in political journalism. The media keeps trying to control the conversation, but public trust has eroded. People are no longer accepting selective reporting at face value, and this moment only reinforced that shift. Kaitlan Collins and CNN had positioned themselves as the dominant voice in the room, expecting to control the narrative. But instead, they were the ones put on the defensive, struggling to recover from an undeniable loss. And now, CNN is scrambling to recover from this major moment, while Karoline's reputation continues to rise. Meanwhile, the conversation expanded further, bringing attention to another major controversy, the rhetoric surrounding political violence. Opponents continue to argue that heated language in the media and political sphere has dangerous consequences. They point to the 2 documented attempts on President Trump's life, both fueled by the belief that he was a threat to democracy. And as the political climate becomes even more charged, the question remains, where does accountability truly lie? The political rhetoric surrounding President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden sparked another intense debate. Statements from key political figures, including President Trump, Tim Walz, and Vice President Kamala Harris, described the rally attendees in highly charged terms. Critics saw this as another example of divisive rhetoric, further escalating tensions between political factions. Meanwhile, Karoline didn't hold back, calling out the media's role in fueling these divisions. The media constantly points the finger at Donald Trump, accusing him of sowing division in this country. But the reality? He's not the one doing it. The media is, she continued, pointing to the hoaxes and misinformation that have circulated in recent years. Narratives that have been amplified by news outlets and weaponized by political figures. But despite the mainstream coverage, the American public isn't buying it. And the proof? President Trump is now more popular than he has been since 2016, a sign that trust in traditional media is continuing to decline. Which brings up the million-dollar question. Will CNN learn from this embarrassing moment and rethink its approach? Or will they double down, sticking to the same tactics that led to this high-profile misstep? Either way, Karoline Leavitt just set a new standard for holding the media accountable. And for CNN, this is a nightmare they won't wake up from anytime soon. Now it's your turn. Did Karoline just deliver the most savage takedown of the year? Did this moment expose CNN's growing credibility problem? And do you think the mainstream media can ever recover from this trust crisis? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. And before you go, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss another breakdown of the biggest media moments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.